if you want to go to page 37, these are their findings that they want.
Their recommendations.
Changes, yeah. They want us to do things a little differently, or they find issue with. One is segregation. The first one that they brought up is segregation of duties, and there's nobody in this room that knew that couldn't guess that was going to be here. That is exactly the first thing on every audit in a small community, because there is just one person in the office. But we have satisfied some of their requirements because the list of bills and the actual bills are on the table for your perusal. The checking account statements are on the table for you to look at. Linda and I talk about these things regularly, so there is some measure of segregation, but we're always going to have some risk because there's just one of me. Okay, there's not really a good way to get around that. They make a recommendation to segregate those duties, and these are our responses back to them. If you jump down to where it says response, we understand the challenge and the recommendation will look for ways to establish operating procedures which work toward this goal while realizing our limitations. And you'll see under that it says response accepted. The next one is reconciliation of utility billings, collections, and delinquencies. While I was doing that for myself here in the office, I wasn't reporting that to you. If you want to pull out your treasurer's report, I will show you where that is in your documentation now. Sure, and I didn't print one for me. In this report here, this is your new treasurer's report, okay? On the bottom right where it says utility billing, that was the total billing that went out the 1st of November. And on the 31st of October, the utility accounts receivable was $7509.25. In the other accounts receivable, this happened to be a $9.29 for bulk water. That is what they are talking about in this deficiency, and that's why this is on the report. I have showed the auditors what we've done, and they have accepted what is on here as satisfactory. Bank reconciliations, they weren't impressed with how that's done, but our software does not support a bank reconciliation printed off copy, okay? I do it every month for both the rec committee and the city account, but when I'm done, you hit a button and it's gone. So there's no printed copy. Now that is, so your bank reconciliation is on the bottom to the left, okay? Shows the balance in the checking account, which if you look at the bank statement, it'll show you that that's the balance at the end of the month for the checking account. The rec committee account, the library trust account, we'll talk about that in a minute. Less any outstanding checks, which there's a printed report for outstanding, any checks outstanding. And then it lists each of our CDs individually so that you can take these numbers, you can take the total dollars less outstanding checks, out to the right, the $112,919, and go over to the operating funds at the bottom of that column, and it matches up. You can take the total of the investments, the 201,426.31, and go to the far column, amounts held in long-term investment, and see that that matches up. So that is how we have satisfied that requirement in the audit report. The third one is separately maintained records. And if you remember, I guess Janelle remembers, the rest of you haven't been here long enough, we went through a somewhat painful time with the rec committee when we brought their checkbook into the city, into the treasurer's financial, into the city office. We went through an equally, if not much more painful time when we talked the firemen into setting up their association, and we took the actual firefighter duties and began paying those from this office. Well, what the auditors came to all of us and said was, the library trust account is hanging out there and there's no accountability on it. Those are public funds as well. They need to be brought in under the city as well. So Janelle and Linda and I had a very non-contentious meeting with Janet Schrod, who is the treasurer of the library trust, and Mary Jean Leslie a couple of weeks ago. They were kind enough to hand over the checkbook and their CD, so we have those balances. Those are now on your report. Those have to be, and their expenses have to be budgeted, their revenues have to be budgeted, and they have to be reported in the annual financial report. So we can satisfy all that. We have worked out some arrangements with the library board trust to satisfy some requirements of their level of trust between their board and the city. But we'll hope to be able to work through those. And Linda, I haven't had a chance to tell you this. If you would be available tomorrow night at 6:30, Janelle and I are going to meet with the library board to go over those things with the entire board. And if you're not, we'll survive. But that kind of came up really late today, so.
That came up late today.
Yeah, I'm sorry to spring that on you at this point.
We need to be at the meeting tomorrow night.
Please don't be mad at me for springing this on you at this point.
I've checked my calendar.
Okay, that's all right. So that, there may be a couple of board members that are a little less than happy with the city right now, but what the message is to them is it's not about control of their money, it's about accountability of their money. And you are the 5 people, with Josh here, you are the 5 people who are accountable for that money. Whether you ever actually see it or you ever actually make a decision about how to spend it, you still are accountable. So that's where I think that is taken care of. Record of investments, they were not happy with how I kept track of our CDs. And what I found is that we very much did have a deficiency there. Well, I knew where they were, I knew what they were, and I knew how much they were. A year and a half later, when they say, what was your balance on June 30 of 2009 or 2008, you're going, I know that CD's cashed and moved over here. I don't know what it was. So we have, and I've developed a tracking system for that, which they have approved. And so I guess I had no clue that I needed to know what it was on June 30th of 2008 in July of 2010. You know, it just... So that was a deficiency which we have corrected. We made some changes in how we back up our computer. Here's our data processing where they thought we had deficiencies. Written policy regarding personal use of the computers, internet use, and we have on the agenda a resolution to correct that tonight. Passwords, they want passwords changed regularly, and we really don't have IT people to be able to do that. I can't do that, so we'll see what we do with that. They insist on daily backups, and I think I told you a month or so ago that I subscribe to a backup system where we back up daily now. And the disaster recovery plan, which we are now working on. So those were the deficiencies we found there. They weren't particularly upset that we were resisting with changing the passwords as regularly as they wanted. So
on the internet part, they're just talking your computer or dealing with the library?
No, just the city's computer. Okay. The library, and if the internet use policy that is going to be in front of you in a minute is, it specifically says this does not pertain to the library. They have their own internet use policy, which the city council doesn't control. Okay. Accounting policies and procedures manual. They want one of those done. They want if I drop over for one of you to be able to come in here and read a book and tell how I do everything.
was laughing.
Yeah,
Not them
so
at
my
work.
response to them was, I'll begin to develop a procedures manual that we'll try to hope to have done in fiscal year 2012, because but I will tell you that the Iowa League of Cities is putting out a new clerk's manual, they haven't updated it for like 10 years. And so I haven't seen it yet, but I've already ordered a copy of the new clerk's manual. I think the best thing to do then will be to incorporate my procedures into that clerk's manual and kind of make it an interactive, both here's the big picture of how you do the job and here's the detail of how you do the job. So I'm hoping that'll be a good starting point to get this off the ground. But and the next one is charge accounts. They want us to have a policy that says, here's how you deal with your charge accounts and here's who's authorized to use them. So we'll talk about that in a minute as well. We use the software company that we purchase our software from, doesn't exactly understand cash basis accounting. And so there were some things in the software that weren't set up to the auditor's specifications, like keeping fund balances as we go. Well, I keep fund balances on this report. I wasn't using the software to do that. We have since changed that after the auditor's recommendation, and I have to tell you that the first 5 days that they were here was the real colonoscopy part of it. On day 6 and 7, and they're asking very specific questions about why this and why that, then I was able to ask them, well, what about, or what if, or how could, and so they were very helpful. It was, overall this audit was a really good learning opportunity for me. Things are in much better shape than, there was, you're not finding anything really wrong here. There's no money missing, there's nothing really wrong. But we found a lot of ways to make things a whole lot better, and it's been a good process, a really good process. They did ding us for, this was in the streetscape project, the early going in the streetscape project, and none of us outguessed the timing of some of the expenses of that. And so we were trying to amend the budget as we needed to, and they dinged us because we didn't quite get that done a couple of times. And we didn't do it. And, so anyway, there were no questionable disbursements, no disbursements of city money for travel that were questionable, no business transactions between city and city officials or employees that were noted. Bond coverage is good. Council minutes, no transactions were found that should have been approved in the council minutes, but were not. The only thing they didn't like in the council minutes was at the end of the year, it's strictly a paper thing, but at the end of the year, if there's extra money in the electric fund, I move it over to the general fund. We've done this for years. There's never been a resolution. There's never been council action on it. It's just when the books are done or about to be closed on the 30th of June, I say, okay, there's this much money, and we move it from the electric fund to supplement the general fund. They don't like that. You guys need to approve a resolution to approve that transfer. So next year when we get there, you're going to get that resolution. Okay? That's all it is.
I'll ask you what it's for then.
Yep, ask me what it's for then. The other thing you'll note, and I might be jumping ahead here. I probably am jumping ahead. I'm jumping ahead. Never mind. I'll go back to where we were at.